What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the PWTorch Fireside Chat, our flagship edition of the show for Thursday, November 10th, 2022. As always, I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zach Haydorn. That is Tyler Sage, PWTorch. Let's just say legend at this point, I think is probably the best way to go about it. And yeah, we're here. Tyler, what's up? What's up, man?
Not much. I would say I'm more of a utility player. I'm like that guy on your baseball team who can play center field, but also I bat ninth. So, but I appreciate what you're saying.
Oh my God, that's pretty. Hey! Those players have a lot of value, my friend. Lots.
Yeah, I'm getting that veteran.
You're way more than that. You're way more
35.
Than that. Yeah. God. Well, man, it's been quite the week. We're coming off. You guys did one hell of a PLE watch along show. That was a blast. I was super bummed to have to miss that, but sometimes your family or stuff, they don't care about Crown Jewel pay-per-view events.
Boy, and as wrestling fans, the transition to Saturdays has been, I think, kind of tough for all of our schedules, and now like the Saturday afternoon. I mean, well. We're not built for that.
Totally. And like on one hand, it's like Saturday afternoon, like there's so much positive about that. Like thoroughly enjoy the fact that there's pay-per-views there. But however, like Sunday night, 7 p.m. is just a lot more manageable from like just a historical, like, watching wrestling perspective. It's like, most people are free on Sunday night at 7 p.m. So, yeah, but it is what it is. But you guys did a hell of a job. It was a really fun show. So hopefully everybody checked that out. If you're new and you're listening to the show, we do a live watch-along torchcast of WWE pay-per-view events where we just kind of fire up the show here and everybody jumps on the stream, jumps and just shoots the breeze and watches the show together. So it's been really fun to do that. So subscribe to the channel so you can make sure to catch the next one, which will be Survivor Series, War Games. Anyway, Tyler, what should we hit first? Because I think we've had a Money in the Bank cash in. We've had like some progress in AEW as far as the world title feud goes with MJF and Jon Moxley. We had whatever happened with Britt Baker and Saraya. And so where do you want to start?
Yeah, well, we almost always start with AEW. So if you're giving me the choice, I wrote the header today. So I want to talk about, anything you want to talk about with Raw, but I think the Money in the Bank cash-in was the biggest thing this week thus far in WWE, unless you want to talk about, the main event of Roman and Logan Paul. But I'll let you decide. Let's
talk about the cash-in. Let's talk about that, because I'm curious what you think. I'm curious what everybody in the chat thinks. And by the way, hello to Hassan and to Zach and to Tracy and Azan. Thanks for being here. As always, you guys. Appreciate it. So I have like a little bit of like a mixed bag on this one. I don't know that I've fully formulated an opinion yet. And I want to be careful because I don't want to like be a hypocrite to what I had said before as far as the idea of one champion across both shows, and then therefore the elevation of the two secondary titles. So that's why. So I start off saying that because I think in some ways the concept of cashing in on a secondary title like the U.S. title will or could help to elevate that belt as like a signature belt for Monday Night Raw that people still want to go after because the world title is kind of like on its other level, right? So I think it could have served that purpose. I don't think it got there though, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I think it was too kind of like hasty in terms of how it was done, and they kind of like, it felt like to me that they kind of squeezed in all this rhetoric and narrative about how the United States title means now more than ever, like in the last 30 minutes of the show. So I don't think it was effective in terms of exactly how they went about doing it. But I think it could have potentially helped the effort to elevate those titles if you kind of took more care and planned it out a little bit better to make it not seem so last minute. Then you add into that Austin Theory lost the cash in, and it's kind of like, well, it's just another one of those moments where, like, if you want Austin Theory to be someone big today, and you want, like, the notion of, hey, he, cashed in his Money in the Bank to get the opportunity to win this title, and then he didn't do it. It's kind of like, I think that's kind of flat. And even though I think people should lose their opportunities, more often, I just think it just kind of all was a little bit flat is the best way to put it. And then you add into that where it's like, what, like, I get that maybe you don't think you can beat Roman Reigns. I think that's a narrative, but I think you want to tell that story though too. Like, tell that at the beginning and have Theory go, look, I'm not touching Roman Reigns with a 10-foot pole here. I'm targeting that belt. So people with the United States title, watch out, because that's what I'm going for. I'm going to be a face of Money. Like, I just think you could frame it up a lot differently than they did. And so I kind of give it thumbs down, but I don't hate the idea that you're able to do that. It's just all a matter of how they framed it, and I think that's where they missed the mark.
Yeah, I would say this is like one of the more complex, nuanced moves. Not that the move is nuanced, but like the analysis behind it, and you laid out a lot of that too. I mean, this is a wholly unique situation where you literally have someone who's running the company for almost 40 years, had kind of slightly handpicked the next guy. That guy then, retires in disgrace, and then you have a new person coming over, and they don't obviously have the same belief in that person, and it's kind of unbelievable that he would cash in and win at any point. So there's a lot there to like give the benefit of the doubt. But I agree with you too. There's lots of things you could do. Like, I think even who's Roman going to be facing at the Royal Rumble, unless that is leading to his opponent at WrestleMania in something that makes sense. Like, not that that's like a great match, but it's also the Rumble, right? The title matches,
right?
I mean, literally, besides the late '90s, or I can think of maybe the Lesnar, John Cena, and Seth Rollins triple threat are like the only sort of world titles I can remember from a Royal Rumble off the top of my head that had much meaning. So, that would be the ideal way, is to build up Theory in a way to have him in that spot and cash in at the Royal Rumble and have him lose. I think that would be totally fine, or do a cop out. For him, just depends if you want to protect him or not, right? And obviously they didn't. Like, him and Baron Corbin are the two people in recent vintage that have cashed in and not won. Especially him not cashing in on the U.S. title is a low bar, and that he's years away now from being a top guy, and maybe that's what they want to do. So all that taken into account here too is like, when's the last like truly good Money in the Bank cash in that we've had in the last 5 years? There's really not a lot. It's felt to me watered down, that they don't really matter as much. And it's just that, it's a combination of a lot of things. I think Triple H is not as enamored by that as a gimmick, is the feeling there, and not having the faith in Austin Theory. So I'm still thumbs down, because the way to do it so quickly is not, you could have done it better even if you didn't like the hand you were dealt. They still didn't play their hand very well. So that is, it's the way to go. But it's over now, and that's something. And Rollins, is I guess a babyface after this too, which is like maybe more important to Triple H and Raw at this point. But it just like was noteworthy, and I think I can be pretty hyperbolic about WWE. I'm pretty sure everyone's aware of that and can be super critical. But like, I didn't think it was like the worst thing in the world, and I kind of get it. So all that being said, is I'm kind of working.
And I think there's something to be said for, like, real quick, what's up, Sean, and what's up, Amos? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. I think there's something to be said for kind of like getting rid of it, getting rid of the Money in the Bank like thing, like for the time being. Like, I just don't think that it had its place, really, like right now. Like, it was just too there's just a lot going on. It's just a bit too complicated, and it was on somebody that, just it wasn't ready. I don't think is the ultimate thing. Is not in a position and wasn't in a position to be taken seriously against Roman Reigns. You've got plenty of contenders ahead of him, as far as you have Seth, you've got Cody, you've got Sami Zayn now. There's The Rock potentially involved, which throws everything off too. The Rock's there. Obviously, Austin Theory is not going to be a player in that. So, I think that you could have executed this in the exact same way. I just think you gotta, just like anything else, you have to put some meaning and context behind it. And it's gotta be, it can't come across like it's a last minute, oh crap, we don't know what we're gonna do. We don't know what to do with this thing, so let's just do this. With anything, if you put the right story, the right context behind it, I think it could work. And I think this could have done that. But it just missed the mark for that reason. And I think it's kind of it's just such a stale concept. Everything runs its course. Everything in pro wrestling can run its course. And this has. I mean, it's been going on now for since WrestleMania 21 was the first one, and we're at 39 now, coming on 39. So that's almost 20 years, of Money in the Bank stuff, and there's been great moments and there's been some misses, and it's time to think of something new. The Money in the Bank contract didn't always exist, and the company survived. So it's time to think of something new. I think it's run its course. It's probably the best way that I can put it. You mentioned Seth Rollins as a babyface, though, and we talked about him last week, and this is the way to go with Seth Rollins right now. I think it's a smart pivot. This Monday, I thought that was a clear babyface turn for Seth. He's kind of siding with the fans. He's cueing them and leaning into their reaction, not trying to kind of troll them. And he had kind of the babyface sympathy kind of match with Austin Theory, just kicking out after getting beat up. So I think that's such a smart way to go with him. And I think already, even after one day, one segment, and one match, he comes across as a bigger star now that his actions in the ring are aligned with what the crowd's giving him. So I give that a major thumbs up. I think that's going to help Raw in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, so to backtrack a bit, and you don't have to respond to this. I just want to, the same night that the 24/7 title gets retired, the Money in the Bank is this happens too. So just keep that in mind. That might have been, hey, let's clear the slate on some of this stuff. I feel, hey, we're at the 3-month mark of me running this thing. Maybe this is my goal the whole time. But if you wanted to keep it, also, is you definitely steal from New Japan and do Theory could have done a whole thing where he threatened the bloodline, and then Sammy stood up and defended the honor of Roman, and
right.
Theory was so convinced that he could have beaten Sammy that he put the briefcase on the line. Sammy gets it, then you can get a whole thing of story of Sammy with the briefcase, etc. So there's other options that you could have done if you wanted to maintain the dignity of the briefcase of that concept. So I think that's something that everyone should look out for, is that was a pretty obvious choice there, and minus the gimmick of selling goods for live events and being a strong PLE. I just don't know if that's there. So those two things. But what you're saying, yes, Seth, I mean, besides him hitting Roman and Dean Ambrose with a chair and becoming the architect before his injury, I mean, he's always been much more over and a much more hot act as a babyface. The second coming, where him coming in and essentially saving WrestleMania 30 is even though it's a heel, that's one of his biggest babyface moments there. The Burn It Down transitioning to a babyface, it kind of was the second peak of his career, and this kind of feels the same way. So I agree with you 100%. I think him in this role, when the audience wants to support him and be behind what he's doing, it just makes sense to not fight it, and I think it was a positive sign.
And he's got such a ring style too that it just plays better as a babyface. It's what he wants to do in there. call him stubborn, but I don't think even as a heel, I don't think he wants to give up the dives. I don't think he wants to give up the cool moves from the top rope. I don't think I just don't think he wants to do that, but it doesn't serve him well as a heel, but it serves him very well as a babyface. And now that the fans have permission to cheer him, I think he's just like the ceiling is just higher for him right now, because if you want to talk about doing a match with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, Seth can't really be a heel for that, because Roman Reigns is 10 times the heel that he is. And so it kind of it worked well at the Royal Rumble because they were able to kind of go back to the Shield and kind of play that up. But I don't think anybody actually thought that Seth was going to beat Roman Reigns. Here as a babyface, you can tell that story in a better way, and make it more dramatic than you could as a heel, Seth. So I think that's the strong way to go. Real quick, let's get to some audience comments here. Yeah, the face trajectory he's on is good, but he just needs to not say he's on social media. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think derailed some of Seth's babyface momentum earlier on. Fiend being one of them. I think teaming with Becky Lynch coming out of WrestleMania 35 was another one. For both of them, to be honest, I just don't think that was the right way to go. But also, Seth get into it, and try. I get what he tries to do. He tries to be the face of the company, and he thinks that that's what the face of the company should do. But I think there's a good way to do that and a misguided way to do that. And I think he's always erred, and he's always hit the latter. I think this time you just play the part of Seth Rollins, play the visionary, the revolutionary, whatever the hell else it is. Be that guy and be the top guy by delivering ratings and delivering numbers and business and just take care of business like that. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. So I think it's a good thing to point out, Sean. I mean, no battles with Will Ospreay, I guess, unless you're going to actually have a match with him.
Yeah, we'll see there. And I mean, also the one thing too with Seth being a babyface, besides giving more direction to Monday Night, especially with Lashley, I guess being more of a heel character now. It gives that the Royal Rumble is setting up really to be quite the event in my mind.
Yeah.
Where you have potentially 4 people if Cody's back in time, right? You have Cody, you have Seth, you have Sammy, you have Jay, maybe again, as a dark horse here, and who knows who else. But when it's not a foregone conclusion who's going to win that, I think that makes that event so much better. And if you have those 4, 3 of those 4. At the end, definitely Sammy and Jay kind of have to be there, I would think, and then maybe Cody. And that's your final 3. You don't know what's going to happen. That could be a pretty good 6 minutes of those 3 battling it out to win the Rumble and be a huge moment at the end of that show. That's a great point. And when's the last time that's happened? It's been a while since you've had there were always people that okay, this person may win, or I want this person to win, but it's been a long time where there's been multiple acts that could legitimately take it, and it makes complete and perfect sense, and throw The Rock into that too. If he's going to be coming back for WrestleMania, I don't think he doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble to get a title match, I don't think. But if you want to do business at the Royal Rumble, that could, it could be a thing. So you throw him in there. Although that kind of, I guess, now that I play it out in my head, if he's in the match, it's kind of that does take the drama out of it, I think, a little bit too. He'd have to come in at 30, but how could you not promote him being at the show either?
Right. Well, I don't think you.
He'd have to be him, hey, I'm the MC, and then then you're thinking, oh, is he going to actually join at the end? That whole gimmick, I guess.
Right, but then it's as soon as he as soon as he enters the match, it's kind of okay,
Yeah, and really, you're not selling pay-per-views. It's more about getting subscribers to Peacock, so and getting ratings as the company, right? So if you have him appear there, you get the buzz, and then you sell subs to sell the WrestleMania match. So I think it's better for him to be a surprise, honestly, the way the business model is now. So.
Yeah, it could be. It's fun. There's some debate in the chat about Seth Rollins and what happens with him and Cody, and I know. Maybe you want to do something to kind of nod to their feud or whatever, but the way I look at that is Cody has been gone for a long time, since June. And, like, if you have to just kind of ignore that history because things have changed with Seth Rollins, like in a positive way that makes Seth a bigger star, like I think you want to stay away from that. Like maybe you can like have them cross paths and kind of like stare each other down or something like that to like just acknowledge their relationship and the history between the two of them. But yeah, you don't want to go to a Cody and Seth match. Like I maybe that was the plan, but I don't think you want to go to like, okay, we're going to do that match for a fourth time, because the whole game's changed around Seth in particular. If they go that babyface route, so
yeah,
I would just say don't do it. If that was the plan, don't go.
Well, another reason to have them be, both faces, so you avoid that, especially in WWE. You're just not going to have two faces go off against each other unless it really makes sense from a storyline perspective. So I don't think they would.
Yeah, or maybe like in the Royal Rumble, you could do it. Like if they're in the Royal Rumble, okay, maybe they can have a little thing. But I just would not be going back to like, oh, Seth injured Cody, and so now Cody's getting his revenge. Like that just. I think that made sense at one point, but it just doesn't.
Or anymore. Cody takes on the barbell that when he was benching Tor's Peck, right? That's the true bench he needs to take on.
Yeah, or like, oh my gosh, guys! When I was watching Crown Jewel, I started late, and I got, as part of Peacock, I got like the
Cody promo thing.
The Cody promo thing, and I was in the building for that match, and I hadn't watched the match back. I did not watch it like on television because I was in the building. I hadn't gotten around to it. And then they showed that like the clip again of him like taking off the coat and I'm just like, God damn, that still look to this day is just like, God, that's such a visual, just such a visual. And that match was so good. Whatever happens with Cody, like whether he goes on to win the world title or not, like I think that match, like in my eyes anyway, it helped like, kind of keep that momentum hot, even though he was going to go away. And I don't know. I bring that up just because I just saw the visual again. It's just crazy.
You're correct. I watched it like 2 months after it happened, and it was still just wildly impressive of a match. And that's like that him taking off his jacket. If he doesn't do anything else in WWE, I mean, that is his lasting image as part of that company, right there. And I think he will do more. But the fact that you come in for a couple months and already get your lasting image, that's going to be hard to top no matter what you do, is pretty impressive. And Cody is, the king of that sort of stuff. So
yeah, he really is. The dude lit himself on fire, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you, as far as Raw goes, like we kind of been going week to week, kind of going like thumbs up, thumbs down. I kind of generally I kind of look at like, is the crowd reacting to what they're doing? And after this week, Wade talked about it with Robert Vallejos on the post show, but I thought it was a better show than like what the crowd gave it as far as the reaction goes. Like I mean, and there was misses on it too, but the crowd was so flat, and so it made me kind of like, it jarred me a little bit. Is like, is any of this stuff actually working? Like or am I like living in this kind of alternate universe where it's like I think it's working, but it's really not, because that crowd was dead as a doornail. And like, if that's how you judge the success of this stuff, I mean, that show was awful. But I guess fundamentally, I didn't think it was.
Do you remember where they were? I don't off the top of my head.
Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Yeah,
Pennsylvania. I mean, geez, where's that? No offense, I know we've got a lot of Pennsylvania listeners here. Maybe they were out, voting as they should have been, which they did. But yeah, I mean that's what not an A town, right? As someone who doesn't live in an A town, I can say that without without disrespect. But
yeah, no, definitely not.
Closer to a Corpus Christi than a Chicago, I would say, was that crowd. So I wouldn't read too much into that. And we'll see if more and less people go there next time they're in Wilkes-Barre. So
I don't know that Wilkes-Barre is going to be getting TV anytime soon. I do not know, or I wouldn't be going back for TV anytime soon. It was, as Zach says here, Cemetery is more life than that crowd. I mean, they were dead. They were legit like dead for most of the show.
Maybe it was just a papered crowd that just didn't care and wanted something to do on a Monday night.
I mean, it could have been. I mean, and they surmised on the post show that everybody maybe in Pennsylvania is still depressed about the Phillies not winning the World Series.
Yeah, I mean they got lots of other good sports going on, so I don't feel too bad. The rating just hit. I've been updating it as we're talking. Would you like to?
All right, what do we got?
So obviously a lot of still election stuff. So the top five was sixth, 930,000, and then a 0.32 on the demo, but 3 Fox News things, and then an NBA game. It looks like the start of the early game and the start of the late game were the top 5 things last night on cable.
Gosh, 3 Fox News things.
Holding steady.
Shame on you people. Anyway, yeah, that's my take. 930,000. Even though you drop in the ratings, like the viewership, and that's a drop, I think, but it's not like a catastrophic drop. So I think Tony Khan's going to be happy. Is that up from last week? Wow.
Yeah, it was 9-11 last week.
Wow.
If I recall correctly. So I can't remember where Raw is, but I can remember AEW numbers. So look at that.
I mean, yeah, Raw got creamed again. So that means that's, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to just lay it on pretty thick to AEW and the Dynamite last night. But Tony Khan will push back on that argument that I will make and say, hey, look, I mean, our numbers are not falling off a cliff. They're not dropping from a ratings perspective. That's what he will push back on. And I think, this number up against pretty stiff competition with the election and basketball, it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to argue. I would argue that the number could be higher if some things were a little bit different. So there's an opportunity cost there, which we've talked about a lot on this show. But I just, that's what he would say, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's always going to spin the company he owns in the most positive light, especially as he's in the beginning parts of negotiating a new TV deal. I think he's extremely happy about this number. We won't talk about Rampage if you want to talk to him about ratings, but
he will. Yeah, he'll go. What's a Rampage?
Cash grab, AEW cash grab. So I think that he will be content with this and just think like, oh, I've got all these people coming back, and that's gonna get me to, 1 million as a baseline when and if Adam Cole and the Bucks and all that stuff can come back. I think would be in his mind. And, we'll see. He might not be wrong either. I think the layout of the show, WWE was getting a lot of people for a long time with really poor quality shows. Different reasons they were poor quality than AEW is, which I'm sure you and I will get into here in a minute. But, it just is what it is. It just gives you that baseline of people who are going to watch that Wednesday. I mean, it's pretty crazy to have that through line of a number. I mean, that's got to be 80% the same amount of people watching week over week, which is kind of crazy.
That is the crazy part where it's like it, and I think it's interesting because it's like you have this situation where you've got like a strong, let's just call it a strong million, because when you factor in the 7-day, like you're at about 1 million, and you're like roughly, and so to me it's like. That says a lot. Like it says, okay, you've got this core audience that you have and that you're monetizing, but there's two other schools of thought as far as I'm concerned on that. Like you're not selling 1 million pay-per-views, right? So like there's room to grow as far as that goes. So even if like you're happy and content with like, okay, we've got our audience here, right? and we love our million, and we're going to super serve that million. Like, the goal should still be, like, because it doesn't matter what you put on TV, right? You could have a good Dynamite or like a bad Dynamite like last week, and it doesn't change. So I would be focused on, all right, well, if that's our million, and like, let's just say we're not gonna, like, we want to grow, and obviously we want to get to 1.4 million, but like, really anything we do doesn't drive the numbers. When we have Punk and Moxley on television for free for the world title, it does like a million plus, like, not like a sizable jump. So it doesn't matter what we put on, but we want to still get pay-per-view buys. So you still should be telling these stories, because you have that million, but the pay-per-view audience trails off. So it's like, I mean, and I know you're not going to convert at 100% of a clip, but you have less people watching your pay-per-views now than you did a year ago. So what gives there? The other thing that's interesting is, like, I don't know, man, and I'm curious to get your take on this for real. Like, what is it, a positive or is it a negative that you have this fluctuation between 930,000, 970, 1 million, but like the fact that you cannot draw with some matches that you're putting on and the talent that you're featuring, like, I think that there's a part of that argument where you would say to yourself, well, no, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because we're not always going to have all this talent. We're not always going to have, you know, XYZ. So it's good that, like, our show consistently can draw. At the same time, I just don't think that that's good pro wrestling promotion to not be able to draw a number with some of your top stars and some of your top matches. Like, when Roman Reigns is on television, the ratings go up. They don't go up 20, 35%. They go up. You know, AEW puts on Punk and Moxley, they go up a smidge, but not a ton. And they've had other big matches where they've gone down. So it's like, I don't know. What do you think about that? I just, there's just something about that doesn't seem healthy to me from a company perspective.
I mean, I think it's healthy from your P&L statement for 2022, right? That you're kind of consistent with where you can budget out, you know, kind of what deal you can get. But I think it's more an issue of the state of pro wrestling, as MJF, I think, rightfully said last night in his weird Pardon My Take clip, that I don't know if that was actually part of that Pardon My Take interview, but the part that really spoke to me was him saying, like, he wanted to bring, he wanted to be that generational talent that is, like, known outside of us right here talking about it and people watching, which, these are all my favorite people in the world, yourself included, Zach, that all are diehard wrestling fans. But, there's not, and it's not the same correlation, but, 1999, you see a People magazine, you see Goldberg and Steve Austin on the cover, and they felt important and part of our pop culture. They were the Taylor Swift releasing an album. That was wrestling at that time. And MJF wants to be made fun of on SNL. He wants to host SNL. He wants to be that crossover person that makes wrestling palatable and not like kind of a joke for people that don't watch it, right? And it's been a while since I've talked about this, but that's, I think, the main issue, that WWE has obviously, if you look at the age, it's got a baseline of people who watch at the peak and never gave it up or pop in and out. And AEW now has gotten a good portion of those people, maybe some people that were disaffected during a time in WWE, but it's not added people into the tent, if you will, of pro wrestling. And that's kind of, WWE is only higher. I think they are putting on a better, more consistent product right now from at least a storytelling standpoint and a character development standpoint. Like, who's aligned with what, and I think that's important. But it has not done. That's not done the same thing either. That's just lost 50% year over year forever. And AEW has not. So, while you and I are critical of AEW for good reason, most of the time, I think it's a positive that their growth is good over year. And I think they just, like all wrestling companies, have an issue with breaking through even slightly to the mainstream. And when it's advertised on, NHL and NBA games, to get someone that's watching that not to laugh at a fake, guys in tights doing soap opera stuff, to break that stigma is what they need to do to grow, and all that sort of stuff. But not to get on a soapbox, but that's kind of the vibe I would feel. And I don't think Tony Khan is doing anything to get someone in that spot either, is kind of why I bring up that point, that as we see, and we'll talk about with all these promos last night, that you have to really care about defining what you are as a character, and do that, as opposed to just like trying to shoot and be cool and get good buzz on shows like this that we're doing, like we saw with Britt and Saraya last night, and not really commit to be that top guy or that top girl, that top performer. So I'll let you talk. Sorry.
No, it's great stuff. I mean, and that's a really good point as far as the, the idea that, like, what is going to bring increased viewership at this point, like for AEW and for WWE for that matter. Like, I think it's really kind of fascinating to talk about, because I think WWE, they go right now, they're in the business of like, well, we want to appear a little bit more mainstream, so let's go get Logan Paul, for example, and let's see what he can do. But like, he, like, from a ratings perspective, he's not pulling in any new viewers like to the show, but maybe he's contributing in other ways, social media views. Really, like, I think WWE more so, it's kind of a different conversation too, because WWE is also needs to appeal to like people who don't watch wrestling at all, probably, but have the checkbooks, you know what I mean, like in the boardroom. And so, maybe Logan Paul plays there more effectively than he would in an AEW, I think, at this point. But I would say, and push back for sure, but like, to try to make one of those stars, like, you have to try to make one of those stars. Like, I don't think, and AEW, I think it's much more important for them than it is WWE. Like, WWE is and has been the brand, but they got to that point because they rode the backs of big time stars along the way. Hogan, Brett, Shawn, Austin, Rock, Cena, like that, they didn't just kind of all of a sudden become this successful brand overnight. Like, they had to ride like the wave of star power for a long time to get to that point. And AEW, I think, is protected because they kind of started on second base as far as that goes, because I think there was this idea of like, there's enough people out there that want this brand of professional wrestling, and AEW is going to be that. But now that they've been that, I still think you have to go and try to make your big time your big time stars, the people that are going to push your company to new heights and get in front of new eyes. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't present your company and your stars that way, then you're not gonna get there. So when MJF says that, I'm kind of like, okay, like, let's see what you can do with that. I think you've got to kind of be more forceful in like booking your show that way and trying to have a company that's more star based and less ensemble, if you want to find that type star that can kind of push you into new spots. I don't know. Does that make sense, or am I just rambling?
Yeah,
you're just like, Zach, would you just shut up already?
No, we're on the same page. That's why I said like Tony Khan's at fault for. I mean, I would say I definitely think he's resting on his laurels and not like on his work ethic or anything like that. But as you see, with the presentation has not changed. The theme song has not changed. It's still the weird, rainbow dust, like gender reveal colors.
Yeah,
all that stuff. The stage that no one really likes, with the two entrances that are stupid, and all that stuff. And that's just a small percentage of it. But it just feels like he's content and happy to be the challenger brand, and it's still cool when you're not number one and all that sort of stuff. And you have to really, if you're going to go all in on MJF, which I think he's the best candidate right now to be that crossover star, obviously,
definitely.
As is his goal, right? If he's, I think in his mind, let's say he signed the extension, I think his plan would be like to be out of full-time wrestling by the time that contract's over, and be a big star in and out of wrestling, and to be the, who doesn't want to be the Rock from a talent standpoint, a career standpoint.
Right.
So, but that you have to commit to that, and you have to also rein in MJF when he has some ideas that maybe he likes, but it doesn't work. So, that, and then just, again, if you go back and watch some of the Attitude Era WWF stuff, it's not as great as we all remember, right? But there's key things that when you think of wrestling, you think of, the milk truck, the beer truck, all the Austin stuff, right? And those shows were fully built around Steve Austin. He was the open, middle, and the main event of every show, it felt like, for a time, and made him feel important. And you don't have to copy that verbatim, but you just really, I don't have the answers to. That's why I don't work for a wrestling company. But it's some sort of how do you make a clip that gets on whatever, TikTok, whatever. I know we probably all hate even thinking about that, right? Because we're here to watch wrestling, and that's not the goal for us. We like good wrestling, and that's what we want. But if you want to grow to that 2 million, that's the stuff you got to do. You got to have some crazy segment that people go and they're like, I got to watch this show. This show looks crazy and fun and whatever, and they're just not doing that. But I also don't know if that's how I would take it if I was running the company. I would start with the basics and tell better stories with more defined characters and build from there. As I think OC said in the comments here, I think he correlated AEW to 1994 WWF, which is a pretty dark time, but it built into a bunch of good stars. So if you build good stars and hopefully don't have to wait 4 years to build that point, but it's you have to have the intention to want to do it. And I think only MJF on the roster, maybe Chris Jericho, if he was 20 years younger, would have the ability or desire to be beyond that, like an MJF, a Danielson, a Cole, the Bucks, Kenny. They don't really have that desire to be, the biggest movie stars in the world sort of people.
Right. No, it is a great point. And Derek, like to your comment here, I think, look, in professional wrestling and really any form of like entertainment, there is a level of selfishness to being a big star. Like there just is. You have to think about you first. All the top stars in professional wrestling did in the history of wrestling. They all did. Lou Thez, Buddy Rogers. Like you go back and if you read Buddy Rogers' book, that type of selfishness is there in terms of who he's going to work with and when and for how much. And I'm going, like that's there. And it was there with Hogan. It was there with Shawn and Brett. I mean, everybody. And the thing Cena, is, I think Cena, Roman, Austin, like it was all there. Like, and the thing is, I think that the key there is that you have to be able, if you're Tony Khan, to manage that type of, I guess, selfishness, for lack of a better word, because the idea is if you feed the right person, it is going to be mutually beneficial for the talent and for the company. Like Steve Austin got to do, say, and work with whoever he wanted. But he was a big enough star where it didn't matter because he just was able to kind of carry the entire company. And now that's like a very once in a generation example, but it happened with other talents too. Like it's not a bad thing to be about, like for MJF to be about MJF when MJF is the most important thing that AEW has. And so I don't view that as a problem, Tyler. Like it can become one if you don't manage it right. But if you manage it right and kind of, I don't know, there's a ruthlessness in that, that I think that it's easy to forget about when you watch these shows, but there's a ruthlessness to the entertainment industry. And, sometimes you have to be able to feed that beast in order to get to where you want from a star power perspective.
Sure. And I think that's any industry, right? You look at the most successful people in the world, at least financially or however you want to quantify it, kind of disastrous as human beings, right? You probably would not want to be friends. Like Tom Brady's got 7 Super Bowl rings, but he doesn't seem like a great guy to be around. He doesn't seem like a good hang. I probably wouldn't want to be Tom Brady, if I'm being honest with you. Look at any billionaire that they live their whole life to make all that money, and then so that's more of a philosophical thing. But even, in wrestling, I bet the nicest guy on the roster is like a Matt Menard or someone like that, right? Who's just out there jobbing for everybody. And, the people that are at the top for a reason, right? Because they're cold-blooded. They have all of that, right? So that's just kind of unfortunately, the facts of life. That's why me and you, need to be more aggressive towards everyone in our life to be more successful than
Yes.
the top guys
Yes.
in this game.
Wade hates getting emails from both of us because we're always just
Oh, yeah.
trying to get up one up on the other one.
Sometimes I don't even put an exclamation point at the end of when I say thank you at the end of the email. That's when he knows.
Oh my God! All right, we got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, we can get to like 5:15 my time. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think this rant may take the next 35 minutes, next 25 minutes. So I want to talk about Saraya, and I want to talk about Britt Baker, and we can lean that into talking about just AEW as a whole last night. That segment. So I watched. I've been late night watching AEW Dynamite recently because of other commitments, and I'm watching that thing going like there's some bit of good in it. Like I think the passion there. I think both women were intense. I think both came across as stars. So
yeah. The Jinko jeans on Britt, I think, was a big winner of that.
Big winner. Yeah.
She
looked great. Yeah.
Sorry. Good.
You're cracking me up. You're breaking me. You're breaking me. Stephen, I hope you're kidding.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. That was not a good segment for AEW or for the women's division or for Saraya or for Britt Baker when you break it down. And it had so many problems. And it's just like I don't know how that type of promo gets cleared. It's either that you're not paying attention to what's happening on your television, or you're completely tone deaf as to what is good pro wrestling. Because look, Britt Baker versus Saraya should be a big match. And instead of the two women going out there last night and heating that thing up, it's like they just tossed cold water on the other and like tried to kick them down to the ground and scuff them up. Like on the Britt Baker side of things, you can't be going out there and taking the liberty of trying to be like the face of the women's division and a pillar of AEW and kind of talking to Saraya like, hey man, hey, you joined me. You came over and you left and you joined me. Like there's way too much truth in that to be to a heel to be saying that, because you had, instead of the audience going, oh my God, I want Saraya just to beat this person up and it's her first match back and I can't wait to see her in action and see her win. You've got them kind of nodding along to Britt Baker going, yeah, wait a minute, she did do that and she did do that. She did just join and wait, like she's saying this is her house now. Like it's totally 100% not. Boy, Saraya is really full of crap. That's not how you get over an angle. Like if you're a heel, like you cannot be doing that. That is not good business. And it tells me that Britt Baker is either 100% just kind of in it for herself and wants to get over by any means necessary, or she's clueless about what the job that she has to do out there actually fundamentally is. And then on the Saraya, so that's wrong with Britt Baker. Not good. Then on the Saraya side of things, you've got her just running down like the whole company that she joined, and talking about Britt Baker that she's never done anything. She's not a good leader of the women's division. And it's like, well, Britt's carried the torch of the division that you just decided to join for quite some time. That's not very likable as far as being a babyface goes. And then overarching all of that is two problems. The first being, I just fundamentally don't like the story of it's my house. No, it's my house. This is we're fighting over whose house it is. It's like that, like you're both in this company now, right? There's a better way to frame up that fight than like my house, your house, based on like a catchphrase that Paige had in WWE, 6-7 years ago. Like that should not be the premise of this big time match between two top stars. That's the first problem. And then the second problem is they are not leaning in to the most intriguing part of this program, which is Saraya's return to the ring. Like, that to me, being so distant from like the story, like I know everybody knows it, right? They know that it's their first match back and blah blah blah. But the fact that that's the story. That's where the heat in this is. The heat is Saraya coming back and saying she's going to win, and Britt Baker going, "Are you kidding me? You actually think you can come back and have a match with me in AEW after you've been gone? Like, you're really going to try this?" Like, that's the heat. That's the story. I think that's where the intrigue is, and it's so far gone from the narrative here in favor of these kind of one-liner, silly, ineffective digs that it takes this program that should be like a leading topic of Full Gear and a reason to buy that show, and waters it down significantly. So I'll take a breath. You can respond. I'm sorry for the rant, but I've been sitting on that for a good 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we all know whose house it is. It's Swerve's house. So
right. And how many house gimmicks can there be in one show? Yeah. Jesus.
I know that's our old gimmick, but you gotta, you're Saraya now, you're not Paige. So the Swerve,
yes,
that's his thing. And to like not that I'm talking like gimmick infringement, but it feels like you're less than when you're not the most over person saying house, right? So you're saying everything right. Both of them they decided to go, turn the difficulty to hard mode and start with, hey, I'm the babyface, you're the heel, but let's start opposite. You will give your bona fides on why you are the heart and soul of AEW and why I am a carpetbagger from WWE who needs to be thwarted, right. And then we'll kind of try and get to the end, right? That was like the thing there. Like you said, this is simple. The big thing is Saraya can wrestle. She's confirmed it last week when she talked to Tony Schiavone, when Britt did not show up for their interview, right? If you do a through line of the story, she said, I have to talk to one more doctor about my status, right? What they should have done with that line is replay it at some point before they came out there. Then Saraya comes out and says, hey, I said I need one more doctor to talk about my status, and that's you, Britt. Can you handle me in the ring, whatever? You're the final doctor. Like, I thought like it was so obvious that was what they're going to do. Then you do this whole thing where Britt says, you've wrestled in 7 years. I'm on the top of my game. You're a joke, whatever. Like, I'm going to not break your, maybe you don't want to say that, but like, just do the heel lines and then you can get Saraya to tell her story like she did, where she started off as a heel and then told her story of why you should feel for her, why you should want her to win, and why you should choose for her to take this division by storm like so many people have not. And you don't have to say that, but she has said that essentially, which is not helpful either. So me and you can say that here, and through her actions, she can prove that. But yeah, it was a total loss. This should be the number 2 match on the card. It should be, Moxley and MJF and this. And it should be easily be the biggest women's match on a pay-per-view ever. And it could, co-main event and feel super important. And you could have either one then take on Jade down the line and have that be the next biggest match. But yeah, it feels like this was set up, but then like there's just no QA from like looking at bullet points, defining characters, talking about it, an agent forcing to go through them and run through what their promo is going to be. It's just kind of unbelievable that it's happened like that.
It is. And it's like, you have to be more buttoned up. Like you can't miss on something like this. And I think when we talk MJF, Jon Moxley, and we go, I'm worried that they're going to miss on whatever it is that they're going to do there. It's like, this is why, because I'm assuming they made a pretty sizable investment to get Saraya to come on board. Like, I'm sure she didn't, come cheap, and she shouldn't. And to get the most out of her, you've got to hit with these things. You can't just miss, and you can't just be like, well, the 930,000, we're probably going to get about 170,000 to buy, Full Gear on pay-per-view anyway. So it's not a big deal. It's like, that's true if that's where you want to be, but this is a type of match that I think can draw other people in, and maybe you get 200,000 buys out of it if you book it right. Like, it's just, and also just from a product perspective and being a good show, don't miss on this. Like, this should be something where it's like, okay, it's go time here. Tony Khan sitting with both of them and going, all right, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it this way. And you guys can get there however you want, but I don't like. We're not going down that road. We're not going down that road. This is the story. Like it matters. It matters. And Britt Baker does not have the cachet or credibility or history of being able to go out there and wing it successfully. Like if it's Jon Moxley, okay, you're going to take a step back on that because I think you could trust Jon Moxley to do business and to do things the right way. But Britt doesn't have that type of credibility at this point in time. If anything, I think her credibility continues to get washed down the drain a bit because of how she acts out there. If this might be an unfair question to even ask because we don't know, but when you watch a promo like that, like who do you blame more for it going as bad as it did? Like, do you look at it and go, man, Britt is just sucking the life out of the room as the heel here because she's not creating an avenue for Saraya to get heat, and so Saraya has to react to that in a certain way that's not becoming. Does it start there or does it start on the Saraya side of things? I was trying to break this down, and I didn't get to a good spot, so I'm not like trying to lead you on in a certain way here, but I just am out there going like, how could these two talented women get together and come up with this? Like there's something there that just doesn't jive to me.
Well, my dogs are losing it in the background. That's why I muted you and was making weird faces as you were talking. You probably hear them now. They picked a side. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's both. I mean, the easy answer, and I think the answer that you can expect from me now is like it's Tony Khan's fault more than anything, right? The institutional control or the lack of, and it is like if I'm Tony Khan, the things I care about on the show last night are this segment and then the MJF promo and the Moxley promo, right? Those are all the stories that matter. They all need to hit to sell pay-per-view. Everything else, the tag match, the 2 out of 3 falls match, those all kind of work themselves out. You have an agent who helps you make sure you have the right call there, right? So this, that would be the first thing. But the second thing is like, I guess I would slightly blame Britt a little bit more because she, kind of quote unquote went into business for herself and claim this is her division. But, if that's not an issue in the structure of the company of like, hey, heels are heels and they do not get over by making the babyface, from another company look bad, right? That's probably not been established. It's hard to even push blame on either of them. I think, Wade and I talked last night on the post show. It feels to me like Britt is a little bit threatened by the star power of Saraya in real life, right? And she kind of went out of her way to make sure, hey, I'm the one that is a better promo. I'm the one that's going to get a better reaction from this crowd. And so I guess that would be just slightly more of the issue. But I think Tony Khan is the bigger issue to me personally.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think Britt Baker, I don't know. I like her as a talent. And I think she has a lot of the qualities that we were just talking about as far as being a kind of a selfish star who is a star because she thinks about herself and she truly believes that when she's in the highest position, that's the best thing for the company. And I think she carries herself that way, and that's a good thing. I just talked about why for about 20 minutes, but you have to have somebody that can manage that personality, and I think that's what's missing. I looked at Britt Baker kicking off that promo, and I'm like, I just was saying to myself, like, this is not. There's no way for Saraya to look good coming out of this because she can't just let the stuff go that Baker said, and the only way to address it is essentially how Saraya did, but it doesn't make her look strong. It doesn't make her look good. It doesn't make her look likable. And so, I kind of had Baker shouldering the blame because it's just like, you got to be better than that. You have to understand what the goal is here. And she didn't. Okay, I want to get to a DM. Zach, who is listening live to the show, wrote a couple questions about this exact thing. I'm going to read them, and then we'll take them in 2 parts. All right. Zach says, I do plan on watching the show live. My comic has more characters than YouTube allows. So here it goes. The Saraya Britt Baker segment seemed to garner a more polarizing reaction than I would have thought watching it live. I feel like both of you guys, as well as Wade, missed the key element of Britt's promo. That element is conceit. Britt's entire promo was bathed in conceit and arrogance. It was all about what she did, her division, etc. She wasn't rallying the fans or waving an AEW flag. It was all about Britt. That's a completely heel promo. By contrast, Saraya's promo was about how much tougher Saraya had, how much more experience she has, and everything she's been through. That's completely babyface. Zach argued on Twitter last night that Britt should have just ran Saraya down, but that's the cheapest of cheap heat. That is a kindergarten level promo, whereas what we got was more college level. It's not about shades of gray. It's about just being a little more clever. So a lot there. And Zach, thanks for the question and for the comments. And I guess I don't agree with the fact that I think it was all those things. I think she was conceited. I think she was arrogant, but she was also right on the money too. And I think that was the fault from the very beginning. Like you can, like Cody as a babyface is arrogant, you know, and conceited. Like top stars can be that. They're not all going to be Daniel Bryan. You know, The Rock, arrogant, conceited, babyface. Like, and I think that in that spot she acted those ways, but when you're watching her, you're like, yes, but she's right. Like she's 100% right in everything that she said. So now for Saraya to combat it, there's no direction for her to go that's strong. So I agree with your analysis of how Baker delivered the promo. What I disagree on is that it was heelish in nature, because what she said was completely likable in my opinion. I was watching it going, oh, Saraya's in trouble here because Baker's speaking the truth. So that's I guess how I'd answer it, Zach. I just think you're right, but the context of where it went, I see that differently. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, and I mean, so I laid out how I would have set up the promo, so I don't need to rehash that. But yeah, I just think, like you said, the heel, the villain, the whatever in a story, right? They have to believe that they're right? That's what makes a good villain. But when the villain is talking so much truth that you're like, I'm with Lex Luthor. Like this Superman guy, he's no good.
He's the worst.
And I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here. That's a kind of a broad stroke there as an example. But you know, it's not good. It's more maybe that's like in 10 years, Tony Khan's going to come out with this thesis of his idea of pro wrestling is more like our politics, right? It's 50-50. You choose a side, I choose a side. There's a half a Saraya side, half a Britt Baker side, and those people all think the other person's the heel, while their person's the babyface, right? That would be the college edition, the nuanced version of wrestling that, you know, I would totally accept and think would be a nice, intriguing way to tell stories. But I just don't think if you want to argue that point that AEW or wrestling in general has done a good job historically to get that to the end zone. And I don't think they could here. I don't give them the benefit of the doubt. So that's why you and I are, I think, a little bit more critical of it, because we don't think that they can execute on doing a thread through a well-told story that this could be, but I just don't think it is or going to be.
Way more down. I am way more down on it. But you know what, Zach? She was waving the AEW banner. Like, yeah, she was waving it by alone, you know, and she was kind of the only one, but she was waving it. And not to mention the fact that she has been the most successful woman. She should be waving the banner of that division, you know? Like, so I think she was waving that banner, and that's why everything she said rang true to me.
Yeah, it'd be like if CM Punk's first match coming back, right? It was not Darby Allin, it was I don't know who's been around. If it was Frankie Kazarian, who's been around since the beginning, was an original tag team champion, and that's not Britt, so there's not a great correlation. I guess it'd be MJF immediately, right? And if MJF was like, "Hey, you came here with the money, and you don't believe in any of this. We started all this from scratch." That would be, that's the same dynamic, right? It wouldn't have worked out of the gate too. Like this maybe 6 months in when you have established characters by Saraya, maybe it would work a little better. But I just don't think as your first match, the story should be her coming back and getting a big win and being a big star. Now it's clouded because of all of this. So.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that I guess fundamentally don't like about this. Well, I like the match, but between this match and the Jade Cargill match, the AEW Women's World Championship match is the third most important women's match on this show. Like that's a problem. That is a big problem. You're not going to be able. I mean, I don't get it either. Like, put the title on Britt, or like, just if you didn't know that Saraya was going to be cleared, now you do. So take the title off Toni Storm, get it on Britt's hands, and do this match. Sometimes business calls for that, but this needs to be the biggest thing in your women's division. It is the biggest thing, but it doesn't. I mean, if you watch the show, But like, if you like are trying to present, the top of your women's division, they're not fighting for the world title. That's an issue in and of itself. And then a different issue is the other side of that coin, which is the women's world champion is down here behind, five other people, five other women in the division. I don't like that one bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's kind of how it's been booked. And you've seen a lot of the similar things with the men's division too. I mean, the last couple of pay-per-views, the world title's still like the most important men's match, but not all of them in the company's history. So yeah, this is kind of
okay. To Zach's second part, and this is a real interesting discussion, and I'd like for the chat to jump in on this because it's a good talking point. We could probably do like a whole podcast on this topic. I only have a couple more minutes, but here we go. Zach continues on. This opens up a broader discussion about how simplistic promos should be. In 2022, I think having a heel cut a clever but still heel promo without relying on the lowest hanging fruit is a good thing. It's like sitcoms. Lowbrow humor like Married with Children works, but something like Frasier is just as funny, if not more so, because it's well thought out. Tyler, you go first on that. Go ahead. Go.
In theory, I'm with Zach on this. That like I would like a more, you can mix the match, right? Like scissor me daddy ass is kind of the, what Married with Children was the example here. I don't want to offend everyone with my Big Bang Theory slander. That's that, and Frasier, a Veep or Arrested Development, whatever. If you more like highbrow comedies, right? If you do all of that on the same show, I think it works. And I do like that. The idea of I like the idea of Bray Wyatt working as a character. I like the idea of, this promo working as the best version of a 2022 work shoot. But the fact that I don't think the story's going to go in the right way and your whole company is not doing a good job of telling you who to root for, who not to root for, then I don't think it's as effective. If there was a baseline of stories being told effectively, if the Adam Page story was told as effective as everyone tells me it was, with a beautiful story that could be a novel that I didn't see, but other people did, right? And the way that the Bray character works, and the same sort of thing. Like, those are potentially adult stories you're telling, or higher brow stories, but it never seems to be a through line week in and week out in a good way. And you kind of need that lowbrow to do weekly television as an effective way in wrestling, and people lean on that. And I think, unfortunately, that's what works the best, and that's what is used more often than not. As my
and I think, look, and I agree with you. I think in a perfect world, you want some of that on your show if you can get there. But I would say two things. One, what's the most over thing on AEW in AEW right now? It's the Acclaim stuff. It's the scissor me daddy thing. So that tells you something, but also if you're going to go down that road and you're going to do, my phone is now talking to me. If you're going to go down that road and try to have more nuanced storytelling. You have to walk before you run. You can't just go there right out of the gate. Like you gotta build to it. And some people can pull it off, others can't. That's the other thing I would say, number one. Number two, like you can't do it up and down the show. It can't be everywhere. Like you have it now going on with MJF. You have it always habitually going on with the Young Bucks and with Adam Page and Kenny Omega. You had it. You have parts of it going on with, or now I guess you have like a different type of nuance with like the Joe and Wardlow thing. You've got it happening with Britt Baker and Saraya now. It's all over the damn show, and so like that to me that's not nuance. There's nuance in that, but it's not helping the stories at all. And when the nuance is not helping the story, then it's too much. You got to back away and get something more, more fundamental down. And then the good thing is in pro wrestling, that works. I mean, look, I think there's lots of examples of, you mentioned Veep, great show, lots of nuance, really like high level writing, just tremendous. But then I think you can say the same thing about a show like, I may get beat up about this too, I don't know, but like Westworld, where it's like, yeah, the writing is up here and the concept is up here and there's nuance every which direction, but nobody knows what the hell is going on. It doesn't make any sense. So like that nuance is not feeding the success of the show, it's hurting it. And the complexity is hurting it, and not understanding how to feel about characters is hurting it. You can't have that. And so that show would be better off just backing away, and being a little bit more simple so that it's not, I don't mean that it's not dumbed down, it's just less complicated and more straightforward. I think, who was I listening to? I was listening to, it was in my other job. The manager that I have in my other work life was talking to me about, he was reading the show series, the book about HBO, the history of HBO. I think there's a new book that came out about
oral history of it.
Yeah. And one of the things he talked about was at the beginning of Game of Thrones, there was a mess. There's this pilot episode out there of Game of Thrones that never aired. They reshot the whole thing. And they brought in a new director to direct it all. And what in this book they talk about the idea that, hey, everybody, I don't know how to feel about any of these people. Is this person a good guy or a bad guy? Is that person a good guy or a bad guy? This, that. You can't just start there, because then the turns that you do, the nuance that you drop in, it doesn't ring true, or it doesn't make you react to anything, because you don't know how to feel about a person. Like Jamie Lannister's, semi babyface turn in the middle of that series doesn't mean anything if you don't think he's just this despicable human being from the beginning of the show. You have to define him that way. So nuance only works if it has the right context, and I think it was an interesting example, I thought, to bring that out. Tyler, you got to bounce, right? Let's put this thing to bed. Thank you all for joining us. Sorry we were a little bit late today. I had a bike issue. If you want to know, I'll talk more about it on Twitter. Thank you, Sean, to Rin, to Zach for the great questions, and Bryant, and who else? All of our regulars is on. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it, Tyler. Always a blast, my friend, and we'll do it again. We'll do it again real soon.
Sounds good. And I liked Westworld. We can talk about that later, but RIP, it got canceled, so we'll never see that. But they're going to release
even like the second season. You like the second season?
Yeah, I mean the first is the best. I like the second. It'd probably be 1, 2, 4, 3 would be how I ranked the seasons from good to
okay. Because second, I still don't know what happened. Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll do Westworld podcast
and get our thing canceled. So yeah, go ahead. You can end the broadcast there, though. I just wanted to say RIP.
All right, I will. Thanks everybody. If you're listening to this, appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Follow both of us on Twitter. You'll be happy that you did all three of those things. And until next time, we'll get you guys down the road. See ya.